Jim, an interesting season. We do have a spring now.
We have a wonderful spring actually, Rob, after having a rather cold winter, and even the evenings now are still cold. We had a frost this past week, but what it's done, it's even up the buds of all the fruit crops, and even vegetables are in even maturation as they go through their growth stages. So it's pretty pleasing, and what the reflection of that will be two things. One, the flowering of any of the fruit crops could come along pretty quickly, so growers have to be pretty diligent in making sure they're checking their growth stages, because there are various things they may have to do through those growth stages, especially into full bloom. And going through that pre-bloom period is very important, but nice and even. And what happens is that what transpires, if everybody looks after ourselves and the bees work well and all those sort of things, we'll find that the fruit and the harvest time will also be even and come off quite evenly as it has done through the flowering period. So it has quite a reflection of what happens now in this next 3 weeks, what actually happens in January, February, March, whenever the crop is being harvested.
This happened very quick. All of a sudden we went from winter to spring.
Yes, and that's just a straight reflection of very cold temperatures through the winter, and then all of a sudden the soil temperatures started to move up a little bit, but the daily temperatures are around the 15-18 degrees, and poof, away things go. Once they start to move, they won't stop in a season like this. So it's really pretty good start, actually.
Are you nervous about frosts?
Yes, always nervous about frost.
That was a very quick answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, this year, especially with El Nino, they do bring spring frosts. What happens, you've got your northerly conditions, things shut down about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sky's clear, and a cool breeze from the south may come in, and then it drops off, and then you've got a frost. And that can happen any night, any time for the next sort of 6 weeks. So the potential for a spring frost is rather high.
Now, you mentioned bees. Insecticides and bees don't mix.
Certainly don't. And the growers must have a look to see what's going on, where the hives are. Most growers now know where hives are kept. The beekeepers keep an eye on that too, obviously. But read the label, see which is toxic to the bees. Get them on in the evening, even prior to flowering. Get all the insecticides on you need to get on, if you need to get them on at all. Have a reason to apply insecticide. If you haven't got a reason, don't apply it, and certainly don't apply them through the period of flowering. So it's quite simple principles.
Now, Californian thistles are rearing their ugly little heads.
They certainly are. The soil temperatures are warming up. The actual ground is cracking a bit. Although we had some recent rains throughout New Zealand in the last sort of 10 days, and some good rain actually, the cracks are appearing and the thistles are romping out. And you've got to wait, you've got to be a little bit patient. They look a bit ugly, but you've got to be a little bit patient. They come up, they're quite erect, and then the outside leaves go down and they flatten on the ground. And this is the time, and not every thistle is going to do the same thing at the same time, but if you get the majority of your thistles in blocks of Californian thistles, spray them when those outside first exposed leaves are flat on the ground, and you'll get a really pretty good result.
Because apparently if you mow them, they end up running out of steam as well, don't they?
They can do, and I mean, stock obviously helps that too. We don't have stock around horticulture this time of the year. But yeah, mowing can, but it's those roots, those rhizomes that go along and undercrops and in root systems of trees and bushes and vines and whatever. That's what we're really after with these herbicides. So the more flat area we've got to put the glyphosates, come an adjuvant on there, the better it is.
Brilliant. Now, fungicides.
Fungicides, now this is a critical time. We're leading into flower. I mean, stone fruit's in bloom. And in fact, I think Alexandra had their Blossom Festival this last weekend. So they are well underway, and they have got several fungicides they need to put on through the bloom to stop brown rot. And many are fructicoli.
That starts now.
It starts right now. So they'll be spraying those right now. All the cherries, the apricots, and the peaches will certainly be out. Nectarines will be only a few days away. So they're underway with those. But the apple guys are in the early pre-flower stage. So are the berry fruit guys. So with those guys, they put on some good fungicides now, good cover before full bloom, and you don't have to go back at bloom time to actually spray them off. The diseases don't come through bloom time. They're there, but they aren't a problem. So we can get a good cover on prior to bloom, and crops like kiwi fruit, apples, berry fruit, and those pears and all those sort of crops, and then cover off some fungicides later on in the latter part of bloom when the fruit's starting to set. But in stone fruit, you've got to actually have some fungicides on during bloom for Monia fructicoli, which is brown rot, and it can be quite devastating.
It's amazing that you have to play so far ahead.
Yes, oh, absolutely, yes. So those guys, I mean, they've had white tip and pink, what we call pink, which is the next growth stage, and then all of a sudden, bang, you got a flower. And the bees are flat out. Now the bees won't be hurt by these fungicides, and growers obviously know that. But do check on what adjuvants you may be using. There are some adjuvants out there that irritate bees, and you don't want to irritate them at all because they don't do their work.
Nothing worse than a grumpy bee.
Nothing worse than a grumpy bee. So and because the temperatures are reasonably warm during the day, we haven't seen so many bumblebees this year. The old bumblebees are the ones that come out in the real cold weather. The honeybees, they're a bit softer. And they like temperatures of 12 degrees plus, and they'll get out there and work like blazes. And at the moment, they are doing that during the day, which is really good.
Residues, is that a problem still?
Major, yeah, and becoming more so. A lot of the markets that we're heading to with our New Zealand produce, fruit and vegetables now, are in Asia and America, not so much in Europe, but still going to Europe, of course. And these newer emerging markets coming out of Asia are being quite pedantic about where MRLs or the maximum residue level should be on pesticides on fruit coming in or on concentrate that has been obviously made with fruit somewhere, and that comes in. That is also under the same scrutiny. So what we're really saying, the grower and the exporters must be really connected, and in general that is the case. So they've got to be talking to each other. They've got to make sure they fully understand their responsibilities in terms of the growers, responsibilities in terms of what they can and cannot apply at this time of the year. And if all is equal, and there are specific spray programs for specific crops, if they follow those, read the labels, talk to their advisors, talk to their exporters, they'll get through without any problems at all.
There must be some sort of written plan or something that follows. There must be some accountability on paper.
Well, there is, but there are a lot of MRLs that aren't listed on small, what we call small crops or minor crops, for minor crops. So fungicides aren't registered necessarily for that particular crop, but they've got industry approval to use those fungicides. So all of a sudden you've got to look in deeper into the research and see, right, what are our real potentials of having a blowout with an MRL in the middle of career or something like that when you don't really want it, when the season's upon you. So, but look, there's good checkpoints. The MPI are very helpful. The ACVM guys are very helpful. And in general, the chemical suppliers are also right on there. They don't want their materials to be misused. So there's a lot of things that need to be checked. It's not a matter of, like the old days, of pulling out the chemical, throwing it in the tank and going out and spraying it. So, well, I've done that, because that's what I did last year, or the year before, 20 years before. It's all about, firstly, no matter what it is, whether it's an insecticide or a fungicide or a miticide, if there's no reason to apply it, you don't apply it. We want to keep our fruit and vegetables as clean as we possibly can.
But that's economics as well. I mean, you don't want to be wasting money on a spray that you don't need.
Well, it's funny that every grower will ask a supplier, well, I want it the cheapest, I want to save money.
And the one with the barbecue that's thrown in. Yeah.
That's the one. But interestingly enough, they also want the security to know that they've covered off that particular disease or pest. And that's more important to them actually than the cost of the drum. So if you get all of the ducks in order, we should have a pretty clean green sort of program.
Let's hope everybody plays with it, Jim. Thank you very much indeed.